In the first phase, Man City were starting with a short pass from the goal kick. In the first phase, Man City were building the game in traditionally back four and using double pivots, and those were Rodri and Gundogan. Bournemouth's front man was 2 versus 1 down in front of Man City's pivots. City were building the game smoothly in the first phase. In open play, City were building the game in back two. City's centre backs were very narrow. City's fullbacks were inverted and playing with defensive midfielder Rodri. Rodri was the central pivot and the fullback were playing as a wide midfielder. So in open play, shape of Man City were 2-3-5 formation. As the ball was in action in the final third, the shape of Man City were changing. When the ball was in the final third, left back Cancelo was pushing high from midfield to the flank. So in the final third, the shape of Man City were 2-6. Left back Cancelo's position was high, but right back Kyle Walker was in pivotal role in midfield. Rodri and Kyle Walker were operating as a double pivots when left back Cancelo was pushing high. So in this way, Man City were playing in 2-3-5 to 2-6 formation from middle third to final third. When the ball was in the final third on the left flank, Phil Foden was dropping in and Cancelo was operating high and wide. Both Man City's pivots were drifting wide to provide support. Man City had 4 players in the wide zone and Man City were outnumbering Bournemouth in the wide zone. Bournemouth were 4v2 down in the wide zone. Now with Bournemouth outnumbered, Bournemouth were not able to stop him getting third man runs. Now see the fullback is pushing high and the pivot is drifting wide. Winger Foden is dropping in midfield and Gundogan is in the left half space. So in this way the Man City were making a square shape in the wide zone. 4 players from Man City were in the wide zone and 2 from Bournemouth. So Bournemouth were getting outnumbered. So Bournemouth were finding it too difficult to mark City's player. In this scenario, Foden was unmarked and he was going in behind the defense with a third man run. Now the elements on the right flank were acting little differently. Comparing the players on both flanks, the players on the both flank were acting differently. The left back was pushing high on the left flank and the winger was dropping in midfield to receive the ball in half space. Talking about the right flank, right back Kyle Walker inverted in midfield and right winger Mahrez was operating wide. So in the final third, the left back was high and the right back was inverted in midfield. The left winger was operating in the left half space and the right winger was operating wide in the final third. The Man City right back was playing in midfield. KDB was drifting wide to support the winger, and when the ball was in the final third, KDB and Mahrez were interchanging position. When Mahrez was going out to in, KDB was playing wide on the flank. Because KDB's passing was very good, Bournemouth was having trouble when KDB and Mahrez were interchanging positions. Bournemouth were defending in 5-4-1 compact shape in the final third. Man City were committing so many players centrally high on the pitch. KDB and Gundogan were joining the back line. Erling Haaland and Gundogan were operating central. Foden and KDB were in the half space zone. Because of Man City had 4 frontmen center, Bournemouth were forced to getting narrow defending. Winger Mahrez and left back were providing width by staying high and wide, so Man City were attacking with front 6. Bournemouth were in back 5 in the final third and Bournemouth were 6 versus 5 downs against Man City in the final third. By committing players in the wide zone was overloading. Bournemouth's defense and midfield were drifting wide due to wide zone being overloaded. Due to wide drift of midfield and defense, space opened up on the far flank and Man City were switching flank with the help of pivots. With the defense being out of position, opportunities for Mahrez. Bournemouth's midfield was getting outnumbered. Bournemouth were 5 versus 4 down in the midfield. KDB and Gundogan were dragging the center and wide midfielders. Foden was dropping in and he was dragging the center midfielder and Rodri was 1v1 in front of the wide midfielder. Because Bournemouth's 4 midfielders were being dragged by the City midfielder, Walker was free centrally. When the ball was on the left flank, KDB was operating in the right half space and he was forcing to wing back to narrow defending. So the winger was free on the flank when the ball was switched. Bournemouth were defending narrow in open play. Man City were distributing the ball in the final third from 1 or 2 passes as Bournemouth's midfield was narrow. So the midfield was forced to going to deep and the game was being direct. In open play, the front man was 2 versus 1 in front of Man City's pivots, so Man City's pivots were easily receiving the ball from the centre backs and distributing the ball on the flank. Bournemouth were building the game in back 4 in the first phase. Bournemouth centre backs were split alongside goalkeeper and this way Bournemouth were in back 4. Haaland was ready to press the centre backs when ball was active. Bournemouth were using double pivots and they were under pressure from KDB and winger. The winger were covering Bournemouth's wing back from wide, so Bournemouth was being forced to play long balls.